President Donald Trump has opened his first visit to the United Nations since taking office with a speech saying the 72-year-old institution has become too bureaucratic and ineffective, and needs to reorient its approach. In a meeting with counterparts from around the world on Tuesday, Trump complained that spending and staff at the United Nations had grown enormously over the years but that we are not seeing the results in line with this investment. U.S. President Donald Trump speaks at the United Nations as UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres listens during a panel discussion in New York. Photo Bloomberg. Caitlin Knox. The polite but firm 4-minute speech included none of the bombast he had directed at foreign institutions in the past. As recently as December, after winning the presidential election but before being sworn in, Trump dismissed the UN as just a club for people to get together, talk and have a good time. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, was expected to speak to President Trump about nuclear arms. Photo Bloomberg. Andrew Harrer. The tension has gone both ways. Last month, the UN human rights chief chastised Trump for his repeated attacks on the media, saying that they could incite violence and set a bad example for other countries. But with world leaders and foreign ministers, including Australia's Julie Bishop, looking on inside the UN's packed Economic and Social Council chamber, the president did soften his words on Tuesday. The main message is make the United Nations great not again, Mr. Trump said. Make the United Nations great. Such tremendous potential. He commended the Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and his call for the United Nations to focus more on people and less on bureaucracy. We seek a United Nations that regains the trust of the people around the world. In order to achieve this, the United Nations must hold every level of management accountable, protect whistleblowers and focus on results rather than on process, he said. He added that any reform should ensure that no single member shoulders a disproportionate share of the burden, and that's militarily or financially, a sore point for many American conservatives who bristle at the share of UN costs borne by the United States. Trump said nothing about whether he would pursue his proposal to radically cut U.S. funding for the organization. No mention was made during Trump's opening appearance of the global crises that the UN has rung alarm bells about: attacks on the Rohingya minority in Myanmar, climate change, the nuclear threat in North Korea, and a record 65 million people displaced from their homes. Trump's main message to the visiting heads of state and government will come on Wednesday when he addresses the opening session of the UN General Assembly. Aides have said he will stress sovereignty and accountability, a contrast to his predecessors who used the annual occasion to rally joint action on issues like terrorism, weapons proliferation, and climate change. Trump will use the next 4 days to meet individually with numerous counterparts, starting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and President Emmanuel Macron of France. He will also host a dinner with Latin American leaders that could focus on Venezuela's increasingly harsh domestic crackdown and economic crisis. The meeting with Netanyahu was expected to focus on Iran, a theocratic state that both men consider a threat to regional peace and stability. Netanyahu planned to use the session to press Trump to revise or scrap the nuclear agreement that the United States under President Barack Obama and 5 other major powers reached with Iran to curb its nuclear program in exchange for lifting international sanctions. Trump has repeatedly denounced the deal, and is studying options for toughening enforcement or pulling out. The New York Times app